Well, better late than never. We're a little bit later than we thought we were going to be. We had a technical glitch. I'm pretty sure that Nancy Pelosi had her finger on our control panel, and that's where the glitch was. You know how I learned to throw the blame like that? By watching congressional hearings this week when nobody in the entire government took any personal responsibility for what happened in Afghanistan. After watching that, I figured that, no matter what happens, it's somebody else's fault. You know what isn't anyone's fault? That you showed up, and we're so very happy that you did. Thank you for being patient. And by the way, why don't you go ahead and share with people that you are with us on the live stream so that they will know that we did make it. We just had to delay our start by a few minutes. Pam Case, senior producer for The Huckabee Show, is here with me, as she normally is, and she'll be reading questions. We want you to send questions. You can send them in the chat. Better yet, send a super chat. Moves it right up to the top of the list. Mention, too, we just want you to know that there are going to be some moderators watching the chat so that we get the best questions that we possibly can. We need you to subscribe to the channel. Why? Because that way you'll know when we're going to be doing live streams and special videos. So we hope that we will be getting that from you. Be sure to hit the notification bell, give us a like, and share it with people, because all of those things, well, they matter a whole lot. Before we get into some of the congressional hearings today, because it's some fascinating video from that, I want to go to the land down under, to Australia, where those lovely little koala bears and kangaroos hang out. There's also some crazy people hanging out, and they've been elected to be in their government. This is really a surprise, but it's disturbing as well. It would be funny if it weren't true. The Australian government has gone a little bit on the nutsy side when it comes to making sure that all the citizens wear their mask. And I want you to see what happens if they don't. Watch.
Everyone, go across the border. Cross over. They cannot arrest all of us.
Well, there are people protesting in Australia because of the very strict lockdowns due to COVID. You may have seen they were shooting rubber bullets at people. These are unarmed people who are simply protesting the lockdowns, and they got shot at by the police with rubber bullets. I mean, that's a pretty extreme reaction. And then if you saw, and I know you just did, I was stunned to see them taking the butt of a gun and just beating a person's head with it and getting on top of them and hitting them. I'm thinking, and what did they didn't wear a mask? My gosh, I mean, we don't treat criminals that badly. In fact, in California, you can walk into a Target store, take $1,000 worth of merchandise. You don't even have to run. Just casually walk out and say, thanks for the stuff, and you'll never get prosecuted. Folks, this is crazy stuff. This is when people have gone beyond bonkers, and that indeed has happened. This next clip, also from Australia, is a police visit to a man's home. They want to know if anyone in his family had been to a protest or were going to a protest. Think about someone knocking on your door in America and asking you if you exercised your constitutional right to protest.
Okay, what we're here for is obviously just in relation to the recent protests that are popping up and whatnot, and actually just here to do welfare checks and whatnot. You're planning on going in?
I didn't know there's anything on.
No?
No.
Any planned protests that you may know of?
Not as far as I know.
Well, the poor guy, he's just standing there at his front door trying to explain that, hey, I'm not sure I'm going to go protest anything. Not if 5 cops come to my door because of it. It's really frightening, but I'm afraid that it's coming to a community and neighborhood near you, as in your neighborhood, if we in this country keeps going in that direction. I pray not. Another big topic this week were the congressional hearings, both in the Senate and in the House, with the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. We had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, and then General McKenzie, who is the head of CENTCOM. We got several clips. I'm going to just kind of run through them here. But the first one, this is Secretary Austin. He was asked by Congressman Mike Johnson of Louisiana, who's to blame for Afghanistan? The silence is deafening.
I appreciate that you think that was a big success, evacuation, but the blame for the disastrous withdrawal that everyone agrees was a disaster, who's to blame for that? I'll let the silence speak for itself.
You know, I had a speech teacher in high school who used to say silence is agreement. I never forgot that. It's a very true statement. When people are silent, they basically are agreeing with you. And if you're silent about something that is happening in our culture that you ought to speak out about, just remember, being silent is agreement. And the silence of the Secretary of Defense was, quite frankly, it was agreement that the congressman was right. It was a mess. This one is General McKenzie. This is important because President Biden, in an interview with George Stephanopoulos of ABC, said that he followed the advice of his generals, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State. He followed their advice. Now, that's what he said. Right here, this answer tells you that is a lie. This is General McKenzie, head of CENTCOM.
General McKenzie, isn't it true that the president rejected your best military opinion and advice as to how quickly to withdraw American troops from Afghanistan?
Well, I will say this: it has been my view that I recommended a level of 2,500, a level that would have allowed us to hold Bagram and other airfields as well. Once you go below that level and make a decision to go to zero, it is no longer feasible to hold Bagram.
But that was your best opinion and advice.
That remains my view now as it was then.
That's very powerful because the president said that he was simply following the directions and recommendations of his generals and other people around him. That's not true. They were saying to him, don't get below 2,500. Now, let me be very clear. The president doesn't have to take their advice. He's still the president. He's the one who's been elected to something. They haven't been. So, no, he doesn't have to take the advice. He can bring the troops to zero anytime he wants. That's his decision. So please know, I'm not disputing that. I'm disputing that he went on national television and absolutely lied by saying that everyone around him was in agreement. What we just heard indicated that was not the case. Now, how do you spin that? Well, here's how Jen Psaki spins it at the White House.
I don't think we need to dumb this down for people because this is a really important issue. What we're talking about here was an initial recommendation in the short initial period of time of having a troop presence that would continue. Not a surprise, the recommendation over the course of the last 20 years from the military has been to maintain a troop presence. You could argue that's their job to maintain that. The president's view when making a risk assessment, when reviewing his options, was that he did not want to escalate the number of troops we had in Afghanistan. He did not want to risk losing more troops. He did not want to go back at war with the Taliban.
Jen, that wasn't the question. The question was, did the president get advice that went against his ultimate decision? Of course he can make the decision that he wishes to make. That's what I said before. I'll continue to say that. I give him all the benefit of being the president, getting to make the decisions, but he doesn't get to lie about it. And that's what he did. And there was one point in the Stephanopoulos interviews, George Stephanopoulos must have been talking to generals because he pushed back against President Biden. And he said, now, are you sure they didn't tell you to have at least 2,500? And he said, no, they didn't. Then he paused and he said, not that I can remember. Okay, one of two things. Joe Biden either flat out lied, or Joe Biden doesn't know what day it is and doesn't remember the advice that he was given. Either of those options are not good for the country and really troubling. Well, how did we do in Afghanistan? Joe Biden says it was spectacular. Everything was just beautiful. But interestingly, General Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he didn't think it was so beautiful. Watch.
It is clear, it is obvious to all of us that the war in Afghanistan did not end on the terms that we wanted, with the Taliban now in power in Kabul.
I'll tell you how bad it was. It was so bad that Democrat Senator Dick Blumenthal of Connecticut was on MSNBC. Now, when you say Blumenthal and MSNBC, you're basically, you know, that's sort of like ice cream and chocolate sauce, right? I mean, that is the lovely combination of two things that work together beautifully. Peanut butter and jelly. Dick Blumenthal, MSNBC. And despite how much he wanted to protect his party and his president, even Dick Blumenthal on MSNBC admitted this.
There really was no clarity, and with all due respect to the Secretary of Defense, he provided no real responses to my questions because at the moment there aren't responses. There is nobody in charge, and undeniably, and he knows, and so does every member of that panel.
I mean, again, that was very powerful stuff. I kind of find it refreshing when there's somebody in Washington who speaks the truth, even though it does not exactly help his own party's best interest. That was pretty bold. I know we got a lot of questions coming in, for which we are very grateful, and we hope you'll continue. But I wanted to get through some of those things to sort of frame up the day for you, because, look, I think this is important. On one hand, we're watching another government, Australia, in a very heavy-handed way, go after its own citizens, not for committing crimes, but for not just completely adhering to the idea of a lockdown. People want to be free. Look, folks, we don't live in Cuba. We don't live in Russia. We don't live in North Korea or communist China. Our Aussie friends, they thought they lived in freedom. We think we live in freedom. We're this close to losing it when the government can start shooting rubber bullets at us and hitting us in the head because we disagree with lockdown. And one of the reasons that we don't trust our government is what we just saw when they can't even explain the policies that they put forth in a hasty withdrawal from Afghanistan that resulted in the deaths of 13 servicemen and women and left Americans behind. It's hard for us to say, boy, our government, they're doing a bang-up job up there. Pam, I'm sure we're getting some questions and some comments, so let's get to a few.
We are. Got to reach out and say hello to a lot of folks online with us today from Kentucky, Anna, Las Vegas, Nevada, California. We've got Lancaster, Ohio here. The living room sofa, by the way. Also, a big, and you're going to have to teach me how to say this, Woo Pig Suey from, how do you say that? Is that the way you say it?
Yeah, Woo Pig Suey.
Woo Pig Suey.
I can't believe you don't know how to say that.
Well, I don't know how to say it correctly.
Well,
I thought maybe you could teach me.
By the way, Arkansas is 4-0 going into the game with Georgia this week.
So noted.
Yeah, they went from totally unranked and unpredicted for anything to being in the top 10.
Yep.
It's an extraordinary start to the season.
As is Kentucky. We'll see how that works out. Plus, hello from Oregon. All right. First question. I want to shout out Super Chat, by the way. Alexandria 825 just wanted to say, hi, Mike. Thank you for all you do. Angel blessings.
Thank you, Alexandria.
Sam O is asking, where is your daughter Sarah in terms of the Arkansas governor's race?
Well, she is in the middle of it. There is a primary. I think her poll numbers show that she's considerably ahead, but that's not something you ever take for granted. And so the primary is not until May of next year. It's a long process. I would just say pray for her. I think she's going to win, but I don't know. Now, I say that as a senior advisor to her campaign. Some of you wonder, what is a senior advisor? Well, I'm a senior citizen, and mostly my job on the campaign is to advise her children when to go to bed when I am tasked with babysitting them while she's out campaigning. So that's what a senior advisor does. It's a great job. I love it.
All right, here's a compliment, but you can also respond to it. Mr. J says, Mike Huckabee has something missing from most politicians, common sense.
That is a great compliment. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. You know, I grew up like a lot of you did, not with the most sophisticated surroundings in the world, but I grew up with a sense of street smart just from having no other option. You know, I didn't have a lot of highly educated people in my family. As I've often described, no male upstream from me ever finished high school. That didn't mean they were dumb. I think most of my relatives and ancestors were very smart people, may not have been highly educated, but there's a difference between being educated and smart. I know some people who are highly educated, they ain't so smart. And I know some people that aren't that educated, and they're real smart. I'll take the smart people over the just highly educated people any day. I was blessed to be able to get some jobs in radio as a 14-year-old kid that paid my way through high school and college and grad school. But if I didn't have formal education, I sure would hope that I would be smart enough to be able to just look around me and see things as they are and recognize it. I think that's what common sense is, and I value that in anyone.
From Linda Crow, Governor. Mike, how are we ever going to get our country back? I want Donald back so bad. I felt so safe.
Well, I think, a lot of people who were never Trumpers, obviously Linda wasn't, but a lot of people who were never Trumpers and said, we just want there to be civility. We don't like those mean tweets. Well, how are you feeling about that now, I would ask those of you who felt that way, because we had energy costs that were the lowest we'd had. We were energy independent. We had China rocked back on their heels and having to deal with our trade pushback from their cheating. We had peace. We didn't have any wars launched during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president. Our border was under control. We lowered taxes. The average American family had $4,000 a year added income. It was really moving along pretty well. But there were some people who didn't like his personality. Linda, I agree with you. There are days I really miss the mean tweets if it means also I get policies that are pro-life, pro-Israel, and pro-American. I kind of like a president who loves America and isn't ashamed of America and openly says so.
Okay, from John Bruno, he says, well done, Norway, downgrading COVID to a seasonal respiratory ailment. You heard about that?
I have, and they're celebrating in Norway, and I congratulate them for that. I've said repeatedly, let me say it again, COVID is a real issue. It is deadly. One of a close friend of my wife's and mine died this past Wednesday after a month in ICU of COVID. Breaks my heart. I've had several of my close friends who have passed away because of COVID. So I'm not one who says it's no big deal, there's nothing to it. I think there is something to it, and I think it is a big deal, especially if you have a family member or a dear friend who's died. That hurts. Now, do I think that we need to lock down the whole world over it? No, I don't. I think that's counterproductive. I think that if your doctor recommends that you get the vaccine, you should. If you've had COVID, you probably don't need the vaccine because you have natural antibodies, and I want the government to follow the science and recognize that. I don't like lockdowns. I don't like punishing people. I think that's a very, very unfortunate thing. And I especially hate this more than anything, underline everything I'm about to say. I hate the politicization of the whole issue of COVID and the vaccines. Folks, this is not a right, left, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican divide. There are a lot of people who simply just don't trust or want the vaccines, and some have been told by their doctors not to because of maybe immune disorders that they're just not sure of. Why don't we let those people follow their doctor's advice? I've been vaccinated, so if you don't want to get vaccinated, you're no threat to me. So I'm not going to go scream at you in some public place because it doesn't matter to me. I want you to make that decision based on what is best for you. And I don't know why we've made this such a divisive thing, but people have. And people have especially tried to say, well, it's those Trump followers. Actually, it isn't. I don't know if you know this, but I'm thinking this is going to backfire on some of the Democrats. The largest group in our country who do not accept and want to get the vaccination are people who are African American. The second group is Hispanics. So it's minorities that have been largely resistant to the vaccine. So these policies that say you can't go to a restaurant or you're going to lose your job depending on where you work will disproportionately affect Black and Hispanic people more than it will the general population. You're not hearing that on the news, but that is an absolute fact. Let's take this moment to encourage everybody to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so we can let you know when we're doing one of these or one of our special videos. Be sure to leave us a comment. If you like it, don't like it, let us know. Hit the like button. That's always a nice thing to do so that other people will be able to watch, and share it. Hit the share button and share it with the folks in your circle, friends, enemies, those who are indifferent. Okay, Pam, what else
All right,
we got?
Gov, can we take a moment for a birthday wish?
Sure.
All right, so Lee Franklin writes, I am 80 years old today, and it'd be nice if you would say hello and happy birthday to me.
Lee Franklin, happy birthday. Brother, I'm so glad you made it to 80. That's pretty awesome. And so you bet you are worth a mention. And I hope I make it to 80. And if I do, I'll let you wish me a happy birthday. But Lee, happy 80th. God bless you. Thanks for watching our live stream today.
Gov, you mentioned earlier pro-Israel, and we've got one of our viewers today, JW, asking why pro-Israel.
Well, first of all, I think for me, and let me just say, even if there was no political or economic reasons or military or intelligence reasons, I'd be for Israel because of Genesis 12. Those who bless Israel will be blessed. Those who curse Israel will be cursed. Look, I believe the whole book, not just parts of it. I believe the parts that I totally understand. I even believe the parts that I don't fully understand. But I believe it is God's breathed word. So because of that, when the Bible tells me that Israel is God's chosen land for his chosen people, I don't argue with God. I just don't. So that's part of it. But let's go to a more practical reason. If I were an atheist, I've been going to Israel since 1973. So I'm not telling you what I've read or what I've heard or what I've seen on TV. This is what I've observed with my own eyes. Since 1973, we're getting close to the 50th anniversary of my first trip to Israel. Here's what I've noticed. Israel is a land where the people elect their leaders. Unlike most anything between the Atlantic and the Pacific, all throughout Eurasia, in that entire region, there are very few countries where the people truly elect their own government. They do in Israel. It's a democracy. And they have methods to get rid of people. They even will go after corrupt politicians. They have a sense of justice. They live by law, not by simply whoever is in power. That's important. There are people who are highly, highly educated, technologically advanced. Let me give you an example. Do you like cell phones? Because if you do, you wouldn't have one if it weren't for the Israelis who developed that chip that goes in your phone that makes it work. Do you like seedless watermelons? What about cherry tomatoes? What about heart devices that your doctors in America use to monitor your heart? Those were all Israeli inventions. We have all, whether you know it or not, we have all benefited from some of the remarkable scientific advancements of the Israelis. I also appreciate that they don't believe that it is their job to go out and take property all over the Middle East with a very strong military. It's simply to defend the boundaries of the land that is theirs. God gave it, they've won it back, and they should be able to maintain it. So for all of those reasons, and many, many more that I don't have time to get into, yes, I believe that Israel is a land that we ought to support because no nation more closely mirrors the United States of America than Israel. Both of our nations, Israel and the U.S., were created by people who wanted to be free, who wanted first and foremost religious freedom, but they also wanted economic freedom. They wanted individual opportunity and responsibility. They wanted to be able to choose their own government and live as a free people. They also escaped from galloping terrors. And in the case of the Jewish people, they almost were annihilated by the Holocaust. So shouldn't they be entitled to a little strip of land the size of New Jersey? And by the way, if you think, well, they have too much land, the Israelis have 1/647th of the land that is owned by Arab nations. So this idea that they have a lot, they don't have very much at all. Tiny bit.
Thanks, Governor. Mike Nixon writes, what all is going on should be a lesson against voting on emotion or against someone because of personality without considering progress made. Ignorance breeds ignorance.
Boy, I couldn't agree more, Mike. That is so very important. Personality is not what ought to drive our vote. It ought to be policy. It ought to be what that person stands for, what that person believes. If a person running for office is really sweet and nice and hugs the necks of all of our young daughters, as Joe Biden did a little more than that, he sniffed their hair, and so he really got into that. But here's the point. I don't care how nice he is. If he wants to take most of the money that I have worked really hard and to give it to people that get up at the crack of noon and watch Netflix all afternoon, I got to say no to that. If he wants to believe somehow that we ought to be giving away vast amounts of the American treasury to people so that they can have free everything at the expense of the people who work, I'd say no. If he wants to open the borders so that people don't come through in a legal way. We don't know who they are, where they've been, what they're bringing with them in terms of disease or drugs, then I'd say, no, thank you. I'd rather have a controlled border. So personality, by the way, I don't think Joe's that nice of a guy, quite frankly. But even if he was, I wouldn't vote for him on personality. I'd vote for someone, him or anyone else, based on policy. What will they actually do if in office? Once again, we remind you, hit the subscribe button and that notification bell. Be sure to leave us a comment, a like, and share this with other people so they can join us.
All right, from Meg Houghton, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Meg says, I love Mike Huckabee, but that beard, something about it is almost homeless chic.
Ooh, wow.
Ooh, homeless chic.
Hey, I've been called everything from homeless chic to Sean Connery. I kind of like the Sean Connery comparison better. So I'll go Bond, James Bond.
That's good.
I like that better than homeless chic.
By the way, my husband said the same thing about Sean Connery.
Oh, did he?
That. Yep, he sure
I thought
did.
you were going to say he said the same thing about homeless chic. I was going to say, then you're fired. You go home and fix your husband.
It was nice working with you, Gov. All right, Greg Neighbor says, why is no one talking about court-martial for Miley?
Yeah, you know, you're talking about court-martial
Yeah,
for who? For
Millie.
Millie?
Mhm.
Millie? I kind of got mixed feelings about that. You know, he has been fairly upfront about what he said and what he said to Bob Woodward. I don't think he should have made the phone calls to the Chinese unless he notified the White House. I don't know if he did or not. I don't know that he told the president, with President Trump, I mean. I don't know that it rises to the level of treason because we don't know his motive. We don't know exactly what he said and did. We don't know if he made critical comments about the president, because if he did, that crosses a line and he should have resigned, maybe court-martialed. But I think that the greater body of evidence in the manner in which there has been dishonesty about the withdrawal from Afghanistan and the manner in which it was handled, those would be reasons to withdraw. He did say something that you got to accept. He said he serves at the pleasure of the president. And you know what? There's truth in that. So it's not our opinion of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that matters. It's the president's opinion. We don't get to decide that he goes. Neither does Congress. The president does. The fact that the president still thinks he ought to be there, that is a little troubling. There is an ad. I want to play this because it's really funny. It's intended to make Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, look bad. When I saw this, I said, my gosh, if I were DeSantis, I'd buy all that I could afford to put this ad on TV. And it was all done by this nut lawyer down in the panhandle of Florida that I know, named Daniel Ohlfelder. He's a complete kook who used to dress up in a black Grim Reaper suit and walk around on the beaches yelling at people with a megaphone, telling them that they should get off the beach because they're all going to die of COVID. And he was Mr. Grim Reaper, telling people that they ought to just basically lock down. He's a total nutcase. And here is his ad that he's so proud of that I think makes Ron DeSantis look like a doggone saint. Watch this.
Everyone on board will be required to comply with the state's forever purge.
We are not doing any vaccine passports in the state of Florida. We trust people to make their own decisions in this state. We are not going to be bludgeoning people with restrictions and mandates and lockdowns or any of that stuff.
As Governor DeSantis stated, while you're within state lines, you do not have to wear a mask.
Here's the amazing thing. Florida has now declining COVID rates. There were spikes, yes. But a lot of people were coming into Florida from everywhere around the country. People never remembered that. But the truth is, it's never been in lockdown. DeSantis has said, look, I'm dealing with adults. I'm governor of a state, but I'm not dictator. And I let people make their decisions. Some of them made great decisions, some maybe didn't, but he let people make adult decisions because he respected them as adults. For people on the far left, like Ohlfelder, this attorney, that's not good enough. We want to make the decisions for you. We want government to tell you when you can come out of your house and what you have to wear around your face. I thought this made DeSantis look great.
I'm thinking we all go to Florida.
Yeah, it was really, if there ever has been an ad that backfired, this one, I believe, did it. So
You got to pay
pretty
for some
good.
ads and run those himself. All
All
right,
right.
we've got one more for you. A
All right.
super chat from Stephanie Ellis. Why are the Dems saying everyone deserves a minimum income of $1,200, but they don't care that they are paying disabled people who are in the insurance program of DAC, which I think that's disabled communities, equivalent of $8 an hour?
Well, what a good point, Stephanie. Maybe you should run for Congress. I'll vote for you. That's the point that a lot of us find just indefensible on the part of Congress. But keep in mind, they're interested in making sure there are payouts only for people that they think they can hook into voting for them for the rest of their lives. So if people are gullible enough to think, oh, they're going to give me something, and they really believe that it's going to be free, that's who they're after. You obviously think for yourself, Stephanie, and that's not something they want to accept. Folks, I just hope and pray that you will use your noodle and question what you're being told from Washington when they tell you they're going to give you a guaranteed income and free food and free medical care and free transportation and free rent and all the things that are going to be free, because it isn't going to be free. You're going to pay for it. You are going to pay for it. Not the rich people. They'll find ways around it. They got lots of attorneys and accountants. They'll find a way out. You won't. You'll pay for it. All the time. They'll be telling you you got it for free. Be sure to leave questions in the comments for us. We'll take a look at those even after we're off the live stream. And we hope you'll subscribe. That way you'll know when we're going to be doing another one of these or when we have great videos to put up for you. To make sure you know when, that little sound right there, that's what happens when you hit the notification bell. And we want to say to all of you, thank you for joining us. Now, if you haven't already remembered, we've got a show coming up this weekend. We do not want you to miss it. Here's why.
This week on Huckabee, Rubik's Cube magician Stephen Brundage. News with a twist on In Case You Missed It.
10 plagues that God visited upon Egypt. Today we have an 11th. Bureaucrats.
My knockout Hucks hero, Cherie Wooten. Country music star Jimmy Wayne. Watch Huckabee on Saturday at 8/7 Central and again on Sunday at 9/8 Central right here on TBN.